Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This is the foundation of Stoicism. We waste so much energy worrying about things beyond our control, what people think, how they act, what the future holds. The Stoic path is about shifting that energy toward what you can influence, your actions, your words, your attitude. When you focus on what is within your control and let go of what is not, you stop being a prisoner of circumstances and start becoming the master of your own life. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This truth sits at the very core of Stoic philosophy and has been echoed throughout centuries because it holds the key to emotional stability and inner resilience. Life is unpredictable, and the events that occur around us are often beyond our control. People will speak in ways we dislike, situations will unfold in ways we never planned, and unexpected challenges will appear without warning. The mistake we so often make is believing that peace and happiness come from controlling these outside circumstances. We think that if people acted differently, if situations turned out better, if the world simply behaved the way we wanted it to, then we would feel secure and calm. But the Stoics understood that such thinking is a trap because the outside world is never fully in our hands. The only thing we truly have control over is our own mind, our thoughts, our interpretations, and our reactions. When you shift your focus from controlling the uncontrollable to mastering your own responses, you immediately take back your power. You stop being a puppet pulled by the strings of external events. This does not mean you become passive or indifferent to what happens around you. It means you choose where to place your energy. You recognize that anger, frustration, and stress are often the result of trying to bend reality to your will instead of accepting it as it is and deciding how you will act within it. By choosing your perspective and response consciously, you can face difficulties without being emotionally shattered by them. Imagine you are caught in heavy rain without an umbrella. Most people's immediate reaction is frustration. They curse the weather, complain about their bad luck, or blame themselves for not checking the forecast. But the rain doesn't care about your feelings. It will fall regardless. You cannot control it. The only choice you have is how you respond. You could sulk and let your mood be ruined, or you could decide to walk calmly through it, perhaps even enjoying the coolness of the drops against your skin. This shift is small in action, but massive in effect because it changes you from a victim of circumstance to an active participant in your own experience. This principle extends far beyond trivial inconveniences. It applies to serious trials, losing a job, dealing with a health crisis, facing betrayal from someone you trusted. In every case, you may have little to no control over the event itself, but you always have the ability to choose how you will interpret and respond to it. Will you see it as the end of your peace, or as an opportunity to grow stronger, wiser, and more adaptable? The Stoics would say that your answer to that question determines the quality of your life more than the event itself ever could. It's worth reflecting on how much of our stress comes from fighting battles we cannot win, trying to change someone's opinion of us, hoping the past could be different, wishing the weather, economy, or politics would bend to our personal desires. The energy spent here is energy wasted. By withdrawing from these futile struggles and redirecting your attention to what is within your power, your thoughts, your decisions, your character, you become untouchable in a way that no external storm can breach. This doesn't mean indifference or lack of ambition. It doesn't mean you stop working toward goals or influencing what you can. It means that your happiness, calmness, and self-worth are no longer dependent on the cooperation of the outside world. You can still strive for better outcomes, but you do so with the understanding that if they don't come to pass, you will not collapse emotionally. This is what gives you the steadiness of a mountain, unshaken by passing winds, unmoved by temporary storms. The challenge is that our minds are naturally wired to seek control over everything. This comes from a survival instinct We think that by controlling our environment, we ensure our safety. But in the modern world, this instinct often works against us, creating anxiety over things that are not true threats to our survival. To live in line with Stoic wisdom, we must train ourselves to pause before reacting, to identify whether something is truly within our control, and to release what is not. This requires patience, awareness, and constant self-reminding, but over time it becomes second nature. Marcus Aurelius kept a journal, what we now know as *meditations*, where he repeatedly reminded himself of this principle. He knew that even as the most powerful man in the Roman Empire, he could not control fate, the behavior of others, or the inevitable hardships of life. But he could control his own mind. If an emperor needed to remind himself daily of this truth, how much more do we? This is why the practice of self-reflection, journaling, and mindful awareness is so powerful. It keeps our focus anchored to the only thing that truly belongs to us, our own reasoned choice. When you internalize this, your life changes in subtle yet profound ways. Criticism no longer wounds you as deeply because you realize you cannot control what others say, only how you respond. Disappointments sting less because you recognize that the outcome was never entirely in your hands to begin with. Even grief becomes something you can hold with more steadiness, not because the pain disappears, but because you understand that loss is part of the nature of life, and railing against it changes nothing but your own peace of mind. Training your mind to focus only on what is within your control also brings clarity. You stop scattering your attention across hundreds of things you can't influence, and instead pour it into actions that have real impact. Your productivity increases because you are no longer draining energy on complaints, arguments, or endless speculation. You become more decisive because you stop waiting for perfect conditions and start working with what is in front of you. You become less fearful because you realize that the future will bring challenges no matter what, and that your real preparation is not in controlling events, but in strengthening your own judgment and resilience. This is why the Stoics were not broken by hardship. They had already accepted that life would not go their way and had committed themselves to mastering their own minds instead. They did not waste time wishing the world were different. They worked on becoming the kind of person who could remain calm, clear, and courageous no matter how the world was. This is the essence of strength, to be unmoved by what you cannot change and unwavering in your commitment to live according to your own highest principles. The Stoics understood that resilience is not something you develop in the heat of crisis. It is something you train for long before the crisis arrives. This is why they practiced what is known as voluntary discomfort, a deliberate step into mild hardship for the sake of strengthening the mind and spirit. Seneca often advised that from time to time we should set aside our luxuries, eat simple meals, wear coarse clothing, and even sleep on the ground, all while reminding ourselves, "Is this what I feared?" The purpose was not self-punishment, nor was it to live in misery, but to remove the illusion that comfort is necessary for happiness. In modern life, we have become so dependent on ease that even the smallest inconvenience can shake us. By occasionally stripping away comfort voluntarily, we learn that our well-being is not so fragile, that we can endure much more than we think, and that most of our fears about hardship are exaggerated stories our minds tell us. When you practice voluntary discomfort, you are sending yourself a powerful message: I am not a slave to comfort, and I can face discomfort without losing my composure. This makes you stronger because it shrinks the size of your fears. Many people live in quiet terror of losing their comforts. What if they lose their job, their money, their home, their reputation? That fear can make them hesitant, overly cautious, and unwilling to take risks. But when you've already tasted discomfort and found it survivable, you loosen fear's grip on your decisions. You become more willing to face change because you have already shown yourself that you can live with less and still keep your dignity and clarity. The Stoics recognized that luxury and constant ease, if left unchecked, can weaken the spirit. Comfort breeds dependence, and dependence breeds fear. A person who cannot endure even the smallest hardship without breaking will be crushed when real trials come. Voluntary discomfort is like a workout for the soul. It builds the endurance you will need when life inevitably removes the conveniences you have grown used to. In the same way that lifting weights makes your muscles ready for heavy lifting in real life, embracing small hardships trains your mind to stay steady under the weight of larger ones. There is also a deep freedom that comes from realizing you can live happily with little. If you can be content eating plain food, wearing simple clothes, and sleeping in modest surroundings, you cannot be easily manipulated by the promise of luxury or the threat of losing it. You no longer need to compromise your principles or bend your will to keep hold of comfort because you know your peace is not dependent on it. This independence of mind is one of the greatest strengths you can cultivate. It means that even in times of scarcity, you can walk calmly, knowing that your happiness is rooted in your own values and not in the shifting conditions of the world. This practice is not just about physical simplicity. It also applies to emotional and social discomfort. We can train ourselves to endure the discomfort of criticism without rushing to defend ourselves, to sit with uncertainty without demanding immediate answers, to face rejection without losing our self-worth. The same mental muscles that are built by sleeping on a hard floor or fasting for a day are the ones that will help you stay composed when a friend turns away from you, when an opportunity passes you by, or when life demands patience in the face of the unknown. The key is to approach voluntary discomfort with mindfulness, not with resentment. If you choose to go a day without certain conveniences, do it with awareness. Notice how your mind reacts. Do you grow restless, irritable, or anxious? Do you find yourself longing for what you have set aside? Each reaction is an opportunity to study yourself, to understand the hold that comfort has over you, and to loosen that hold. You are not trying to prove how tough you are to the world. You are trying to prove to yourself that your happiness and stability are not so easily shaken. In our modern age, voluntary discomfort may seem unnecessary. After all, life brings plenty of challenges on its own, but the value in this practice lies in the fact that you are choosing the discomfort, which makes it a controlled form of training. It is far easier to face difficulties with strength when you have already practiced doing so in smaller, self-chosen ways. By controlling the timing and type of discomfort, you can build resilience gradually so that when life's unplanned hardships arrive, you meet them with a spirit that has been tempered and tested. Consider the example of an athlete. They do not wait for the championship game to begin training. They train in advance, often pushing themselves beyond the demands of the real game, so that when the moment comes, they can perform without hesitation. Voluntary discomfort is that kind of training for the mind and soul. It prepares you to stay calm when others panic, to think clearly when others are overwhelmed, and to keep moving forward when others freeze. There is also humility in voluntary discomfort. When you step away from luxury and ease, you are reminded of what is truly necessary for life. You realize that much of what you consider essential is, in fact, optional. This humility allows you to live more gratefully because you stop taking small comforts for granted. After spending a night on the floor, your bed feels softer. After eating simple food, your next meal tastes richer. This gratitude softens the constant hunger for more, which is one of the main sources of human dissatisfaction. Seneca said, "Set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, 'Is this the condition that I feared?'" The purpose of this question is to confront the exaggerated images of hardship that exist in our minds. We fear poverty as if it were a monster, but when we voluntarily taste a small portion of it, we see that it is survivable. We may not prefer it, but we can endure it. This discovery alone removes a great weight from our hearts, because fear is often heavier than the hardship itself. Modern voluntary discomfort can take many forms. You might choose to walk instead of drive, to turn off heating or air conditioning for a time, to limit your meals to the simplest of foods, to disconnect from technology for a day, or to live for a short while without certain conveniences. The point is not to make yourself miserable. It is to gently and deliberately step outside your comfort zone and to learn that you are still yourself without the extras. When you do this consistently, your tolerance for discomfort increases. Small inconveniences no longer derail your mood. Unexpected challenges no longer feel catastrophic. You learn to adapt quickly because you have already practiced adapting. This adaptability is the foundation of resilience. It makes you more confident in your ability to face whatever may come because you have trained your mind and body not to demand constant ease. Over time, voluntary discomfort shapes a deeper trust in yourself. You begin to know, not just hope, that you can withstand difficulty. This inner trust frees you from the constant need to control every detail of your life in an attempt to avoid hardship. You stop building your life around the avoidance of discomfort and start building it around the pursuit of what is right and meaningful, regardless of how comfortable or uncomfortable it might be along the way. Marcus Aurelius wrote that it is not the events themselves that disturb us, but the way we think about them. This simple yet profound insight reveals that our experience of life is shaped less by what happens to us and more by the interpretations we place on those events. Two people can face the same situation, losing a job, ending a relationship, being caught in a storm, and have entirely different emotional responses. One might see it as a disaster, the other as an opportunity. The external reality is identical, yet the inner reality is worlds apart. This is the power of perspective. It is the lens through which we see the world, and it determines whether we feel crushed under the weight of adversity or rise above it with clarity and resilience. The Stoics trained themselves to cultivate perspective by deliberately stepping back from their immediate emotions and looking at situations from a broader, more rational viewpoint. They knew that the mind, when left unchecked, tends to exaggerate threats, inflate disappointments, and magnify discomforts until they seem unbearable. Perspective is the counterweight to this distortion. It helps us see events in proportion, neither ignoring difficulties nor inflating them beyond their true size. It is not about pretending that challenges do not exist, but about viewing them in a way that gives us the greatest power to respond wisely. One way to practice this is to ask how much the event will matter in the long run. Something that feels overwhelming today might barely register a year from now. A harsh comment, a missed opportunity, or an unexpected inconvenience can feel enormous in the moment, but when viewed from the vantage point of time, its impact often shrinks. This mental shift prevents you from pouring excessive energy into temporary troubles and allows you to focus on actions that create lasting value. By training yourself to zoom out and see the bigger picture, you free yourself from being at the mercy of every passing wave of emotion. Perspective also means considering events in the context of the natural order of life. The Stoics constantly reminded themselves that change, loss, and difficulty are not accidents. They are part of the fabric of existence. Just as winter follows autumn, so too do challenges follow seasons of ease. By accepting this as the natural rhythm of life, you stop taking hardships as personal attacks and start seeing them as expected, even necessary, elements of growth. This acceptance does not make the pain vanish, but it removes the additional suffering caused by the belief that such things should not be happening. Another aspect of perspective is the ability to look at events from multiple angles. A challenge that feels like an obstacle might, from another viewpoint, be an opportunity for learning, patience, or character development. The Stoics believed that every difficulty contains within it a chance to practice virtue, whether it be patience, courage, humility, or self-control. By asking yourself, what quality of character can I practice in this situation? You reframe the challenge from something that is happening to you into something that is happening for you. This reframing turns adversity into a training ground rather than a prison. The discipline of perspective also involves distinguishing between what is truly harmful and what is merely unpleasant. Not every discomfort is a threat to your well-being, and not every loss diminishes your value as a person. Many things that cause distress are simply deviations from our preferences, not actual dangers. By making this distinction clear in your mind, you reduce the number of things that can truly shake you. The Stoics aim to narrow their definition of harm to what could damage their character or integrity. Everything else was just whether to be endured. One of the most powerful tools for perspective is gratitude. Even in difficult times, there are always elements of life that remain untouched by the hardship. The ability to notice and appreciate these elements keeps your focus balanced and prevents your mind from collapsing into negativity. Gratitude shifts your mental stance from one of scarcity to one of sufficiency, which in turn strengthens your capacity to deal with problems. When you can hold in your mind both the challenge and the blessings that still remain, you maintain emotional stability. Perspective is also shaped by the people you surround yourself with and the ideas you allow into your mind. The Stoics often drew wisdom from philosophy, history, and nature, all of which offered a broader view of life beyond their immediate circumstances. Reading about the struggles of those who came before, observing the vast cycles of nature, and contemplating the brevity of human life all serve to keep personal troubles in proportion. When you see your difficulties against the backdrop of centuries of human experience, they rarely seem as overwhelming as they did in isolation. This is why Marcus Aurelius would remind himself that he was just one small part of a vast universe, that generations had come and gone before him, each with their own struggles, and that soon enough his own time would pass as well. This was not meant to diminish the importance of living well, but to keep his mind anchored in reality. When you remember that your life is but a brief chapter in a much larger story, the urgency of petty grievances fades, and you find it easier to focus on what truly matters. Perspective also involves learning to pause before reacting. Our initial emotional response to a situation is often the least reliable. Anger flares, fear spikes, disappointment clouds judgment. By delaying your reaction and allowing your rational mind to catch up, you give yourself the chance to see the situation more clearly. This pause can be as short as a few deep breaths or as long as several days of reflection, but it can make the difference between responding wisely and acting in a way that creates more harm. Another benefit of perspective is that it helps you avoid unnecessary suffering by recognizing the difference between perception and reality. The mind has a way of creating stories around events, stories about what they mean, what will happen next, and how they reflect on your worth. Many of these stories are assumptions, not facts. By questioning these narratives, you can strip away layers of imagined suffering and deal only with the reality in front of you. This mental discipline keeps you grounded and prevents you from being swept away by fear or despair. Practicing perspective is not a one-time effort, but an ongoing discipline. Life will constantly present situations that tempt you to narrow your vision to the immediate discomfort, to forget the bigger picture, and to react impulsively. Each time you catch yourself in this state and step back to view the situation more broadly, you strengthen your ability to do so again in the future. Over time, this becomes your default mode of thinking, allowing you to navigate life with greater calm and clarity.